Hello, welcome back to How to Learn a Language. Today we're talking about language learning burnout and why stopping is sometimes the smartest thing you can do. And honestly, this matters so much because so many language learners are exhausted, but you don't feel allowed to pause. Okay, I'm giving you permission to pause. I'm going to tell you more about it at the end. It's called Language Reset. It's happening next week. It is free, but if you're curious now, you can find out more. You can sign up for free at lindsaydoeslanguages.com/reset, but more on that later. So let's talk first of all about why stopping feels so dangerous. So for many language learners, stopping feels risky because your effort has become really tied into identity, right? You feel like you are a language learner and you have this impression in your mind of what that means. And stopping can then feel like stepping away from who you are. And there's also a lot of pressure from streaks and this narrative around productivity, apps rewarding consistency, study advice, praising discipline. And, over time, continuing becomes the goal, right? Just staying doing the thing becomes the goal, not learning well, not enjoying the process, anything but stopping, right? Now, from a psychological point of view, this is reinforced by this idea of the sunk cost fallacy. Have you heard of this? When we have invested time, money, and energy into something, stopping feels like admitting that the investment was wasted, even when continuing isn't serving us anymore. And so if stopping then automatically just feels like failure, you keep pushing long past the point where reflection would actually really help. We would really benefit from just taking a break, but instead we stay busy. And so you stop being intentional. You just keep doing the thing, right? Because you've been taught that you need to keep the streak and that productivity is good and discipline is good and you should be consistent. And you don't think, am I learning well? Am I enjoying this? Should I stop and pause? No. Now, I really want you to separate the idea of stopping from quitting. This is a really small but powerful shift in the way we think about this. Stopping can be time limited, it's intentional and reflective. Quitting, on the other hand, that is disengagement. And that has its place. There is a time and a place to quit learning a language, right? Absolutely. We can talk about that another day. But today we're talking about stopping. And stopping is not quitting. Stopping is creating space. I've spoken with many learners over the years who were really exhausted, but just terrified to pause. The idea of taking the train off the tracks was a no-go. But what we did is we really started by just reframing stopping as an active decision rather than a moral one, taking away that guilt out of the equation so we could see, okay, this is practical, this is active, this makes sense. Now, what happens next? Versus, oh, I'm doing the thing, and then in comes the guilt. No, we don't want that. So, that is what's really important is just that reframe. We're not quitting, we are stopping, we're pausing. If you want an even more temporary feeling word, pausing and stopping, right? Because here's what happens when you never pause, when you never stop. Your language learning just slips into autopilot, right? You keep adding resources, you're following routines, you're maintaining streaks, but you'll stop asking yourself whether any of it is still good, if it still fits, if it still makes sense. And this is where the burnout often comes from. It's not from learning too much, it's from learning without alignment, because your effort is continued, but the meaning is quietly just fizzling away. And research on this, on these ideas of motivation and, self-learning, really shows that reflection is essential for sustained engagement, because without it, you just feel this loss of motivation, but in reality, it's loss of direction, right? You don't know what should come next. And it's such a great opportunity because if you never stop to reflect, you just don't get the chance to notice what's working, what's outdated, what is no longer aligned. I talked last week on YouTube about when you've outgrown your goals, and you don't get to spot that necessarily unless you actually take a pause from it. So you end up just trying harder instead of changing course and making those small adjustments. And so rather than having those little adjustments make things feel easier and have you keep making progress, you just end up fatigued and exhausted. It's not good. There's a couple of really gentle questions to ask yourself on this to start you off. Firstly, what am I doing out of habit rather than choice? So maybe there is something that, you're keeping the streak on the app because you feel like you should, right? It's become a habit, the sunk cost fallacy. You don't want to lose the streak. You've done it for so many days. You don't want to admit that you were wrong. What am I doing out of habit rather than choice? And the second one, if I trusted myself more, what might I stop doing? And you'll notice both of these are getting you to think about what maybe is worth stopping, right? This is where it begins. We don't start this process when we stop and when we pause. The smart way to do this is not to just stop and add in more things. We don't start this process that way. We start this by realizing, okay, what can I let go of before we add anything new? Think about if you had your house, right? And maybe it feels full and cluttered. Rather than just going out and buying more stuff and ending up with more clutter and a messier house and you having to weave through things, you first think, okay, what can we clear out before I buy anything new? That's where we're starting here. So what am I doing out of habit rather than choice? And if I trusted myself more, what might I stop doing? Now, these aren't necessarily questions that you can answer while just rushing through and still doing the thing. They need space. You need that pause to really be apart from your language learning so that you can think about them aside from it all rather than in it. When you're in it constantly, you just can't make these decisions. And that's what the language reset, which is happening next week, is all about. So lindsaydoeslanguages.com/reset to find out more and to sign up now. And there's one more funny thing that I want to mention here as well. And that is about why stopping can actually move you forward faster. It is the smartest way forward because stopping often speeds things up, right? You want your language learning to be quick and easy. I imagine you want things to be quick and easy, but it doesn't feel quick and easy. So why would you stop? You're going to stop because it is going to speed things up. Not because you're being more efficient, but because you'll be making better decisions. Because when you stop, you just create that room for perspective instead of pressure, for actual choice rather than just accumulation, and for trust and control. Now, this really matters because, progress is not just about exposure or effort. Yes, absolutely. You need to show up. You need to do the thing. But what is the thing that you're doing? It's about fit, right? The right tools, the right focus, the right level of challenge, all happening at the right time. There's a lot of cogs that need to turn, that need to fit into place for this to work. And only you know what those right things are. I do not know what the right thing for you to do is, what the right textbook is, what the right amount of study per week is. You just have to trust yourself and find that trust for yourself. That, this is one of the things that I'm going to be helping with next week at Language Reset. So sign up and come along and you can find out, because it's going to be really important to give you that confidence to be able to say, okay, yes, I am ready to pause and I'm ready to then move forward smarter after that pause. So if this episode resonates, I am running a brand new free event next week. This is a guided pause designed exactly for this moment. Starts next week. You'll find all the details to sign up for free at lindsaydoeslanguages.com/reset. Learners who take intentional pauses, they're the ones that return with more clarity, with less pressure, with better boundaries. You're not losing progress when you stop. You're actually regaining agency, and that is crucial. It's so important to you being a better language learner and to just making the process easier. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It should not be a difficult thing. It should feel good. Thank you so much for listening. I am looking forward to seeing you at Language Reset next week, and I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you. Bye.